what do you think are some things that marketing leaders that, are really value this type of position or creating this type of framework that you're talking about? What are some simple steps they could take tomorrow to start thinking about this, start implementing this so they can start to see these changes and get this value in their organizations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, well, I think that the first thing is, I think organizations need to think small first.
Yeah.
It's this whole spirit of experimentation, right? Most organizations are operating with a sense of urgency to digitally transform the entirety of the organization.
Right.
And the reality is, if you're tracking with what we've been talking about up until this point, like that whole idea of fundamentally changing the entirety of the organization overnight it doesn't work simply.
Right.
And in fact, one of the core principles of experimentation in the first place, which is a common trap that I see all the time, is wanting to add too much complexity too quickly. And if you go back to core principles of a science experiment, of like how experimentation works, if you add too much complexity too quickly, well, then you don't understand like what was actually driving your results.
Yeah.
And so what we always will do is say, what we're going to do is we're going to take one piece, one part of the organization, one line of business, one product. In some organizations, it might just be even one campaign. And we're going to say, what we're going to do is we're going to implement this model. And we're going to start thinking differently about it. And I would say, if we want to get even a little bit more tactical than that, and more kind of real than that, I would say that there's several kind of beachheads, if you will, that you can you can go attack, right, in this area. The one that I would say that is going to give you kind of the greatest return on your investment in terms of like, okay, what am I going to go do tomorrow? It's go and solve establishing a single source of truth for your organization. And in some organizations that are large, it's not even a single source of truth for the organization. It's a single source of truth for that line of business or that customer segment, whatever it may be, so that everybody is using the same set of data and information by which to make decisions. Because again, if we're going to move to this model that enables us to be iterative and mature and learn from what we're doing, we need a sound foundation of data to learn from.
Yeah.
And so I used to, quite frankly, go into large organizations and talk about single source of truth,
right, and
try and tackle that problem at a much broader level. And I will admit my own folly in doing that, right?
Sure.
Because it's just too rife with pitfalls and politics and bureaucracy. But what teams can do is going to say, well, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that I'm going to be really, really simple here. For this line of business or this product or this customer segment, you know what? We're going to use the same data set to assess the efficacy of display advertising, social media, search, what happens on the website, what happens in our mobile app,
right,
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we're going to use the same thing so that we can understand the relative influence of all of those things. And we can see it all in one place, because we're never going to get anywhere as long as every team and part of the organization and discipline is enabled to grade their own homework, which is what most are doing today.
Yeah, the single source of truth database, I think, man, it seems like it's interesting you say that as a place to start, and I completely agree. I think where brands probably get caught up is when they pursue that single source of truth database and center of analytics or reporting or whatever it is, they try and boil the ocean, and it becomes way too much. And so I love the fact that you're saying, simplify it down. Like, single source of truth, I think, can mean many different things. You can single it down to just one business unit, or even, like you said, one team that can collect data.